Hello everyone, this is Dr. Pavan Soni here. I'm author of the book Design Your Thinking. And in this series of videos, I'll be talking about this book, Design Your Thinking. And I'll go through chapter by chapter summary of the key takeaways from this book. And the idea is to encourage you to pick this book up. And even if you can't pick this book up, maybe you can become a better problem solver by at least listening to this video, because I think we all will benefit from being better problem solvers. And as I've been telling, life exposes you to all sorts of problems. So you might as well develop the skill of how to be an efficient problem solver. So this book, Design Your Thinking, was published by Penguin Random House in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. This is my first book, and the book is doing pretty well. It's already a course book at a couple of colleges. I've been doing several workshops with the aid of this book, and this has served me well with respect to people being able to recollect some of what I have been teaching them. Now, I'll go chapter by chapter, and I'll break this entire series into smaller videos which you can consume. So each video is basically one chapter of the book, so that you can go through the chapter and the video as we go about. Now, why this book? There are three reasons why this book is important. The first is that it demystifies design thinking radically, because for a very long time, design thinking has been associated with the world of technology, startups, the Western hemisphere firms predominantly, and we think that this is the important concept and that it doesn't apply to Indian organizations, which is absolutely not true. In fact, if you really simplify design thinking, it is nothing more and nothing less than a systematic method of problem solving, or I would say human-centric systematic method of problem solving. And I think we as Indians, or at least I as Indian, I would say that it's not that we are not creative, but I think we are not disciplined, because we somehow think that discipline kills creativity, it strangles creativity. But I'm of the opinion that discipline liberates creativity, on the contrary. So I think what you will tremendously benefit from is to bring discipline to your life, and moreover discipline to problem solving, and that is what design thinking does. So that is one big contribution of this book, that it brings design thinking down to the level of a common man, who he or she can then apply that to workplace, regardless of what's the size of the organization, whether it's a startup, a technology firm, a non-technology firm, whether you are at office or at home. That's the first thing. The second thing is that this book offers a huge canvas of case studies, and I'll read out the case studies which we have in this book, okay? And these case studies have been picked either through my own private practice and personal experiences, or by reading, researching, etc. So the companies include 3M, Accenture, Amazon, Anand Group, Apple, Arvind Eye Hospitals, Asian Paints, Bain & Company, Big Basket, Biocon, Booking.com, Bosch, Cafe Coffee Day, DMart, Dr. Reddy's, Disney, Flipkart, Future Group, Google, Hero, Motocop, Hewlett Packard, Honda, IDEO, ID Fresh Food, IIM Bangalore, Indigo, Infosys, Intel, Intuit, ISRO, ITC, Johnson & Johnson, Lemon Tree Hotels, Mahindra & Mahindra, Maruti Suzuki, McKinsey & Company, Microsoft, Netflix, Ogilvy, Ola Cabs, OYO Rooms, Paytm, Pepsi, Pixar, Reliance, Royal Enfield, Samsung, Sony, Tata Group, Tata Motors, Titan, Twitter, Unilever, and Wipro. So there are close to 30 case studies, or 30 organizations where I've distilled their practices on innovation, creativity, problem solving, design thinking, and peppered this book with these case studies. So that is what is the introduction. Now let us start with the chapter number 1, which is what is design thinking. And as I said, you will find a lot of definitions of design thinking elsewhere, but my simple definition is design thinking is a human-centric systematic model of problem solving. That's it. Now there are 3 keywords that spring out in this definition. The first is it is human-centric, which means it is not product-centric, it is not process-centric, it is very much human-centric. The second is that it is about problem solving, okay? It's not about designing. So in design thinking, the idea is not to design something. It's not about thinking what to design. It's about designing your own thinking. So the effort is more in terms of thinking more creatively, thinking more systematically, rather than trying to worry about what the end design is going to look like. So that is where the key thrust of design thinking is, and it is about systematic method. And as I've been telling, that systems are something which we all benefit from, and it is human-centric. Let me give you an example of human centricity. Now here is a marker, okay? Now You must have seen this marker. This is a Camlin marker. You must have seen these markers hundreds of times. You open this marker like this. Okay. Now try to open the cartridge of this marker. Now typically how you will open is that you will try to twist it anti-clockwise like this. Okay. But it doesn't open that way. The way to open this marker is if you turn it clockwise. Okay. So to turn it clockwise, and that's how you open this tip of the marker. Now it's an instruction given here. Okay, turn nozzle this side to open. So why have they given reverse threading on this? Have you ever wondered? Okay, so if you have a marker nearby, you can possibly go and see it for yourself. So the way I close it is that I close it anti-clockwise. Okay, so the marking or the threading on this marker is reverse, and they have given this reverse threading not for utility purpose. They have given it from the purpose of customer centricity. Because what happens is, if I do not know how to use this marker, I might just try to open the cap of the marker by twisting it anti-clockwise, and it may so happen that I may accidentally open the entire cartridge and ink might spill over me. So to avoid that, they have this poka-yoke or the fail proofing that you can't open it that way. Now, does the customer know about it? No. And if I do a market research about which site I should put the threading, and if I ask a customer, most likely the customer would say, I don't care. And this is such an innocuous thing, it's such an invisible thing that you have never thought about this, and even this is actually a design meant for you. So this kind of a design is what is called as human-centric design. It's not product-centric design, it's not competition-centric, it is not profit-centric, it is not regulatory-centric, it is human-centric. So that's the ethos of design thinking. Now, before we go to the model of design thinking, it is very useful for us to discuss about what is not design thinking. Okay, and a traditional model of problem solving or product development or even creativity is what we call as a stage gate model. So what you see over here is a stage gate model where there are various stages through which an idea goes, and there are check gates which the idea must qualify before it is further funded. Now this model is close to a century old, and we know this model with various names like product development life cycle, waterfall model, software development life cycle, and things of that sorts. And most companies, most people in those companies have been using this model knowingly or unknowingly. However, while this model looks great on paper, this model fails awfully in reality, and especially under context of high ambiguity. Okay. And the reason this model fails under ambiguity is as follows. The first major reason is that it has too many checks and balances, too many gates. And the idea of having too many gates is that you don't want an idea to pass through without being vetted or without being qualified. And as a result, you end up killing a lot of ideas which at later point of time may become very useful. Another challenge is that it starts with an idea itself. Now, starting with an idea is a bad idea because you are then fixated on that particular idea and you want to make it through at all costs, which isn't a very pretty thing to do. So instead of that, it's a good idea to sort of look at the real problem. And even why problem, you can possibly go back and maybe look at the situation or the aspiration or the concerns of the target audience. So ideas. Another thing is that in this model, the validation happens very late in the game. So by the time you really take your notion to the market has already moved on, and that you have done a lot of investment already. So instead of taking a well-baked product into the market for the very first time, it's a good thing to develop the product with the market input. So early validation is missing out. This model also doesn't allow for you to have a feedback mechanism. So it doesn't have a recursive loop. You can't hop a stage, you can't come back to a previous stage, you can't accelerate through a stage. It's a very linear, straight-jacketed model. And as a result, a lot of companies which have been using this model have found it to be not as promising as it suggests. So what's the alternate? The alternate that we have is a design thinking model. Okay. Now, if you look at this model of design thinking, the first thing that should catch your attention is that it doesn't start with an idea. So much so that it doesn't even start with a problem. Okay. It starts with an inspiration. And what is inspiration? Inspiration essentially means that why do you want to solve the problem? Why? What's the motivation behind the problem? It's not the problem which is critical. It is a reason why the problem must be solved which is critical. And as a result, what you would often see is that even if you have solved a problem to best of your capacity, the customer isn't still happy. because you do not address the reason behind the problem. So inspiration or the motivation is the starting point. And I always think that unless and until you make the problem personal, the problem will never get solved. Okay, so you make the problem personal, and that is where the inspiration stage is. Then we quickly get into the empathize and define stage, where you really try to go out to the market, talk to the customers. If you don't have customers, you try to understand the potential users of your product, and you don't have to limit to customers or users. You actually talk to a lot of stakeholders, and there is a very beautiful video to that respect, which is the Ideos shopping cart video, which I would strongly recommend you to go and check out. So you empathize and define. Then you ideate, and only then you ideate. Once you've understood the real pain points of the customers, then you come back and do a bit of ideation, so that your ideas are grounded in reality. Instead of killing those ideas, it's a good thing to prototype and test those ideas. And I think both empathizing and prototyping are the two very critical stages of design thinking, which distinguishes this model from any model by far. So in prototyping, you put all those ideas to the anvil, try them out with the real customers, and try to see if these ideas make sense. And finally, you go ahead and scale those promising ideas. You see, this model allows for, number one, a lot of iteration. You can go back if something is not working. It's a simple model, and moreover, the model doesn't really bank heavily on a idea or the idea. And what we have seen often is that people are so much in love with their idea that they don't want to let go or pivot, and they in fact die with their idea. So another question that I have been posed is that, is design thinking old wine in a new bottle? And the answer is no. Design thinking indeed is a interesting concept, because for the very first time in the realm of problem solving, we are trying to bring human into the bargain. For a very long time, problem solving was about the problem, okay, and mostly the technicalities of the problem, and not so much the person involved, which is the usability of the solution. Now, if I really compare design thinking model with the other problem solving techniques, such as critical thinking or lean thinking or lateral thinking, etc., I can think of all these models with respect to a very simple 2x2 matrix, as problem being known versus unknown and a solution being known versus unknown. So to begin with, what is a known problem and a known solution? A known problem is where you know the root cause of the problem, and an unknown problem is where you do not know the root cause of the problem. You know the symptom, but you do not know where is it coming from, the problem. A solution being known means that you know the range of solutions that are going to work, and in the unknown category, you do not know the range that is going to work. Okay, so you have exhausted with all the possibilities. Now, if you're dealing with a known problem and a known set of solutions, then the technique that we use is lean. The currency in lean is cheaper, faster, faster, better. You have to go about doing things in a very quick manner, with minimum errors and minimum rework. But you can be quick only if you know what is the right destination, what is the right or expected outcome, and that is where the solution must be known. So things like Six Sigma, Agile, Scrum, Lean, all of that is a part of the known quadrant. However, if the problem is unknown, okay, it's very embedded very deeply, and you're not really sure why it's happening, but you knew that if I knew the problem, I can solve it because I have the range of solutions available to me. That is where we use critical thinking. Now, for example, if you look at a doctor is not really generating a new medicine for you. What doctor is trying to do is to map your unique symptom, or which are at least unique in your head, to a known problem, and map that known problem to a known solution. So doctor is using essentially critical thinking. All the mental diagnostics that the doctor goes through, or maybe a detective goes through, is about critical thinking, where you're trying to distill it down to a territory where you can map it to a solution, but the solution is known beforehand. Now, when you're dealing with a known problem but you have exhausted with the range of solutions, is where you go to Edward de Bono's lateral thinking methods, which are very, very powerful. And along the book, I also discuss about some of these methods like Scamper and lateral thinking triggers, etc. However, if you're dealing with a territory, and which we call as a wicked problem territory, where both the problem and the solutions is unknown to you, then you go at design thinking. So in the sense that design thinking is a method where you are spending a lot of time to discover the problem, okay, and then trying to come up with some ingenious solutions. And while doing so, of course, you can bank on lateral thinking or any of the other classic methods of problem solving. And as you can see over here, the diagonal element talks about discovery. So as I move from lean thinking to design thinking, the amount of discovery which I must be prepared to undertake is high. In fact, I equate design thinking to Six Sigma. Now, what Six Sigma did to quality is that it brought a lot of discipline in terms of measurability and verifiability to the world of quality. Okay, and that is what perhaps design thinking is trying to do with the world of creativity. So I would say that what Six Sigma is to quality, design thinking is to creativity. Both are trying to bring that discipline, and I hope that design thinking goes that way. What's the sweet spot of design thinking? So by the end of this book, you may be mistaken in believing that design thinking is a panacea for all types of problem, or that I can use design thinking for all seasons and all reasons, which is not true. If I have to really identify the conditions under which design thinking makes sense, which means you'll be very picky in terms of what problems you use where you use design thinking to solve those. The first thing is that design thinking makes sense when your goal is very audacious. Don't use a sledgehammer to uh, to bring down a nail in a small wooden plank. It doesn't make sense. Okay, so the problem has to be very audacious. The goal has to be audacious. Audacity of purpose. The second thing is ambiguity of context. Okay, because there is so much of discovery involved. If it's a straight open and shut case, you don't use design thinking. You use design thinking when you are trying to navigate through the uncertain territory. So the ambiguity of context is a very critical requirement here. So you don't use design thinking when things are pretty straightforward. You're just over provisioning there. The third is availability of time, because design thinking necessitates that you entertain multiple possibilities, you entertain dead ends, you entertain U-turns, you have to drop a few ideas midway, you have to go back to the previous stages. You need to have the luxury of time. So if you are really in urgency, like on board Apollo 13, you don't use design thinking there. Another thing is access to customer, because design thinking is about solving problem with the customer and not for the customer. Along the entire journey of design thinking, you must be in a position to go ahead and get it validated, get the problem, get the solution, get the final product validated with the customer. So access to customer on an ongoing basis, instead of doing a unveiling of the final solution, you have to work with the customer. So that is very critical. And the final thing is diversity of team. And I can never overstate the importance of diversity of team, because unless you have a diverse team with you, it's very difficult for you to go ahead and generate novel solutions, because you would be coming to the class with your own preconceived notions. And I guess getting a diverse team is perhaps the most difficult part. People often can get customers, people can often get time, but getting diversity in the truest sense, and I'm not talking of gender diversity, not just getting the diversity, but also tolerating the diversity and making them work with each other in a productive fashion, that's pretty much non-trivial. And I think that's where good managers stand out. So that is your chapter 1 of design thinking. So yeah, I'll also share some of the links which can be handy to you as we go along. You can look at the links on the description section of the video. So yeah, that's about it. So now we get into chapter number 2. Thank you.